Welcome everybody to Spirituality. My name is Kat. I'm a longtime astral traveler and spirit consultant. This is my good buddy and my colleague, Joanna. We'll let her introduce herself.
So my name is Joanna. I'm a hypnotherapist, a medium, and a quantum channeler, and I'm just excited to have a chat with you.
Yep, and this is where we just dish reality on some spiritual topics and what we think is really going on as two longtime practitioners. Today, we were hoping to get into a discussion and talk about some of the spiritual buzzwords that we hear getting thrown around a lot within the spiritual community. What do some of these words actually mean? And where's the actual explanations that go along with them? You had any good dark nights of the soul lately, Joanna?
Yeah, I have a whole list. We're gonna need a flashlight for this one, so because it gets real dark.
Right? What do you think a dark night of the soul is? I'm just curious, like, when you hear that, what does it mean to you?
You know, that term has just been used so much, right? And the dark night of the soul. To me, like it really is simply said, going through a lot of really through life, a lot of stuff, a lot of lessons, a lot of heavy things. I mean, really, like in a nutshell, just going through life and the really heavy experiences that really transformed you. Really, I mean, what do you think, Kat? What do you think that word even like means to you?
That's a hard one to nail down, right? And this is kind of why I wanted to have this conversation is like I feel like there is probably as many different definitions of this concept as there are people experiencing it. Um, for me, I guess I would classify Dark Night of the Soul as something where maybe something triggers something that's deeper within, that's like a past hurt, a long time hurt, and it just brings up a bunch of emotions, something that you have to go deep within to sort of deal with. But I don't know, I mean, it could even pertain to maybe a past life or a karmic wound that comes up. What does that mean? There's dark night and soul in connection with it. So does that mean your soul is having trouble adjusting to some life experience? It's an interesting question, right? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, yeah. To me, I think it's also, Kat, it's like the contrast, like dark night. Dark night just means the contrast of the light. Think, just in that scope. So what does the
Mhm.
darkness mean? The darkness to me, of course, just means that uncovering some things, like you mentioned, it could be from a past life, current life, uh, issues that you've had at some point in your life that has been just kind of buried inside of you from, as you mentioned, past life, current life, and to uncover those uncomfortable situations, emotions. It's supposed to bring you to something within yourself that is greater. That's the kind of point of it, but we have to process that stuff, because if we don't, you kind of have to step into it. Like the dark night is, it's always, it's kind of available to us, right? But meaning, if you actually don't take the time and sit down with the things and process it, because that's the dark night, is actually sitting there with it and processing it in all different ways. But once you do process it and get a better understanding, then you can look back on it going, okay, I kind of understand, the dark night, the dark times, the dark thoughts, and that's at least my perspective. What do you think, Kat?
It's sort of like maybe like a journey through the darkness to get to the healing. Do you feel like it's maybe the term is a little bit interchangeable with like inner work or inner healing? When we use terms like that, you hear people talk about terms like an inner child healing or, uh, karma clearing, things like that. Do we feel like it's sort of these terms are a little bit interchangeable within the community?
Kat, exactly. Yeah, like the clearing, the purging, the cleansing, the transformation, like all of that to me is really just one ball of this dark night of the soul, if you want to call it that. And within
Mhm.
that ball, that scope is all these things that we do, and you can call different modalities, but it's really one and the same. It's a different ways of going about to kind of processing it, going into it, releasing that heaviness that you hold in your soul that needs to be processed. Really, absolutely agree. What do you think, Kat, with these words that people use interchangeably? What do you think about that?
But there's a like I've heard the term ego death thrown around. As far as I can tell, they're just talking about when the human focus point realizes there's more to self, like self is a bigger consciousness than just the human that you are in waking physical reality. But I mean, I don't understand why that's at death. Like why are we killing our ego? Like our human self
Yeah.
is, you know what I mean? That's a
Yeah,
natural, normal
yeah.
part of being human. It seems like kind of a dark term to me. What do you think?
Exactly. I think we need new words, to kind of I wouldn't I wouldn't even want to call it Dark Night of the Soul. I think it's the age of the Aquarius, so I think we have to use new terms. It's no longer the night, dark night it's actually the light of the soul. Because when you dive into the dark, you emerge as the light because we really are the light, like at core, really. Like when you mentioned the ego thing, the ego is not a bad thing, it's necessary. The ego kind of
Mhm.
helps us understand who we really are, our power. So it's important to have the ego, but there's a healthy ego and an unhealthy ego, right? So when they say ego death and all this stuff, i think I think nowadays it's going to be, instead of the word having death, it's going to be a different word. Maybe we can create a word instead of ego death, ego transformation, ego
Yeah, I
leveling
tend
up.
to
I don't
think of
know,
it
you know.
the way it felt to me was that it represented a flexible ego, or I was able to remain myself as Kat, but I was also able to begin to incorporate so much more of self, so maybe a broadening of ego, an expansion of ego, an ego expansion rather than an ego death. I think you may be onto
Yeah.
something, is that some of our terminology that we're using kind of represent maybe an older way of thinking about these things. Because you're right, some of the terminology sounds quite dark. Like if I was new to spirituality today and I'm hearing words like dark night of the soul and ego death, I might be like, oh, I don't know about this. It doesn't sound like much
Yeah,
fun.
you don't want
It
to
sort
walk
of,
into it.
yeah, it sort of represents a kind of n- negative vibrational mindset about the type of inner work that we do. And I don't think that we need to have that negative mindset about it.
Even today we're starting like new words, like we need the change is here. And when people hear about the ego death and the dark night of the soul, it's scary, like, oh, I don't want to go into that, like what is that? No, no,
Right.
no, it's a misconception. It's
Thing like even calling it inner work, like who wants to go to work? You know what I mean? Like that doesn't, maybe inner exploration would be better, you
yes,
know? It gives the
yes.
impression that we're constantly having to work on ourselves because we're not good enough the way we are. There's more work to be done, you know what I mean? It kind of has a, I don't know, an unfortunate tone to it, but I think the ego expansion and inner exploration doesn't need to be work. It's a natural part of the journey, and it's a beautiful part of the journey. What do you
Absolutely, Kat, absolutely, that's a really good point.
What do you think about this one? Kind of hit me in an odd kind of way, because we also use some terms like ascension or awakening, right? And I've always taken kind of both of these terms as you're ascending to a broader perspective, or you're awakening to a broader perspective. And this is crazy, but I was blown away the other day when I went to go visit my father, who's like a, late 70s conservative in America. And he made a comment to me. He said, "You won't find any of this woke liberal stuff here." And I was like, "What?
Yeah.
Daddy, I don't think that means what you think it means." What do you think about taking a concept that grew up in the spiritual community, like awakening, and then kind of got shortened to being woke or whatever, being actually taken by conservative news media and turned into a slander word like that? I don't watch the news personally or anything myself, so I was kind of unaware that this had taken place and was blown away by it.
If you think about politics kind of I don't want to say it's like a dirty game, politics, they kind of do certain things, to kind of sway the people, to kind of get their vote. And many a times they would take certain things, including terms, and kind of convert it into leverage for themselves. And that's not the right way to go. And then we're learning the right way to go and not the right way to go. But taking that word that comes from something much better, much higher, and converting it to something more in that negative term, and we have to address it. And it's important, Kat. Thank you for mentioning that, because we have to address it going, hey, by the way, do you see what they're doing? So now, us being the age of Aquarius, we're filtering this stuff, going, hey, everybody, do you see what they're doing? This is made on purpose, even though they don't make it talk about it, because they want to kind of change the way that we think about things. But now we kind of have to stand up in our own power, go, wait a minute, we're going to choose how we decide to look at it now. It's our choice now. And we can't allow people to take words that are made to in a positive light, turn them into something else, because then people kind of get confused. So that's really good,
Mhm.
Kat, that you mentioned that. Thank you. Yeah. What do you think about
Yeah,
that?
it was really troubling to me to find that, a word that has its roots in the spiritual community could be hijacked and used as a political slander word. As the notion of that had never, it's interesting. Do you think that that happening sort of represents the spiritual community has now grown to the point where this term is now associated largely with anybody liberal, like.
Generally speaking, there's more and more people, quote unquote, being awake,
Mm-hmm.
waking up to what's really happening. So, clearly the agenda of certain people around the world are noticing, oh, people are waking up, they're realizing things. And if you want to call them the spiritual community, because that's basically what it is, they're waking up to life, right? That's why we have to have discernment. So whenever we're looking at something and you like this, you go, oh, they're using that word, discernment. Wait a minute, that doesn't align, because now they're trying to manipulate and twist things that it's rooted in a positive way, source, and converting into something
Mm-hmm.
else. And in a sense, going, that's not right. So because we're at the age of Aquarius and everything's being uncovered, all these things, the truth will prevail. And this is where we have to kind of announce and going, hey, that's not right. That's not, don't convert something so, positive into negative, like stuff. So I think all this stuff, Kat, you're mentioning is going to be uncovered. And it's really good that we're even mentioning this.
Yeah, it's spirituality or awakening or any of this is in no way it's in no way a political stance. And it was crazy to me to find that it being politicized like that. I do know that there's, and again, we're starting to get in the realm of not trying to be inflammatory, right? Certainly there's a long history of antagonization between, again, certain religious sects and certain more natural herbal practitioners, trying to avoid words like witch. But um so there's a long history of antagonism there for sure. Do you think that we're starting to see some old antagonisms resurge, um and just taking a different, more modern form than they did previously?
I think so, Kat. This is what I've been noticing, and it's going to be like a progression, and it's going to be more and more of this. Like, it's it's the cycles. Now we're in a cycle where now, like I was mentioning before, the truth will prevail. The truth uncovering all of that. All these words that we have. We're going to slowly convert them and have more clarity. And rather than like a labeling of sorts, like you're a witch, you're this, it's going to just be more of I believe, my belief is more of a description. So let's say witch to me is a manifester, master manifester, basically. Okay, so it's not going to be like, hey, I'm a so and so, and you're a so and so, or whatever race. If you notice it right now, it's happening about sexes, meaning male and female and neutral. It's already kind of happening where the labeling of certain things is kind of changing, but it's kind of actually readjusting itself, right? To me, that's what I see.
Yeah, well, definitely the number of ways in which people are labeling themselves has just proliferated. in recent times. So there's different ways. And again, we'll try to keep the conversation to the spiritual community, but just within the spiritual community, you and I talked about this when we first started recording these. It was like, what do you call yourself? What do I call myself? How do I label
Yeah.
myself for public consumption? Like, I'm not sure how to call what I do. And so you see, even within the spiritual community, the number of labels that people are using for themselves has just proliferated, and it's drawing from all kinds of traditions and cultures from everywhere, depending on, what the individual practice is. So definitely, I think that the older, more rigid structures, just calling everybody a witch is not working out for everyone anymore. Everyone has different cultures and practices and ways that they're choosing to identify themselves. Um,
Mhm.
do you see the labeling system falling away at any point?
I do, Kat. It's not going to happen within 1 or 2 or 3 generations. Is what I've noticed when I was talking to my mom a few days ago, and we are talking about, her generation and then her mom's generation and the changes they've had. So it's going to happen in generations and generations and like generation. If you notice our generation and how we think, massive changes compared to, let's say, your mom and your dad, or my mom and dad, and our parents, our guardians, and then their guardians. I mean, just epic steps, revolutionary, really. But especially in this time now, this revolution that we're having now, called the age of Aquarius, really, it's epic, and it's going to be like, instead of taking one step, it's going to be like 10 steps up within the 20-year scope. It's going to be the wording that we're going to use, the labeling. We're going to just do it in a different way. We're not actually going to label ourselves, I believe, but we're actually going to use descriptive words. And then there's going to be generations. And then after the descriptive words of what you are, then we're actually going to go more connected to the to the soul, meaning we're going to feel each other. So without even actually using words, but this is like, I mean, generations onward, but it could be quick. So I can't say
No,
generations
it's
onward because it's going to,
incredible. It's incredible to me that you bring that up, because that is exactly, as an astral traveler, that is exactly my experience on the other side. That's how all communication is. You just know who and what an energy is when it enters into your energy field. There's no need for labels or anything, because all of that information is immediately known. It's a psychic communication, a transference, a feeling of that energy signature that is that individual. So that's exactly how communication already works on the other side. And amongst celestials and souls that have already transitioned over and all of that, that's how that works over there. And and I get used to it to the point where the labels don't make sense to me. When I made my Instagram profile, there's like this description box that says, describe yourself. And I was like, I don't know what to put here. So I just put blah, blah, labels, blah, blah. And that's what my Instagram page says, because that's really all it is. And none of those words are really what I am as a person or as an energy, as a soul. So I didn't know what to write. I was like, this none of it fits.
absolutely. Absolutely. Kat, I have the same problem. It's just because, I have my company, and, so I'm a hypnotherapist. Okay, there you go. But then when I was trying to decide how to describe myself as a medium, do I say psychic? Because I predicted so many things. Do I say medium? Do I say intuitive? Like, which one do I choose? And clearly, I kind of asked the guys for the information, but kind of go back and forth, even explaining myself, because a medium is seeing the dead, a psychic is predicting the future. So, but I kind of do that at once. So I can't be like medium dash psychic dash intuitive dash, and it's like, this is the thing, it's like now we're still going to be labeling, but I think we're going to, like, as I said, use more description about ourselves, like, meaning what you do, how you, like, transmute, like transmuting energy, facilitating this, like, that's what I see. And by doing so, we can understand better. And it's almost like all in one, like we're going to do that and connect to ourselves more, understanding that we are all psychic, that we're all telepathic. And
Mhm.
we're in this time now that we're all going to tap into it at our own time, not all at once. It's
Mhm.
not meant to be that way. It's actually in waves. It's going to happen in waves, um, where each of us are going to kind of open up our abilities and tune in more to understand this. I like to call the invisible world. What Einstein says 99 is invisible, which is really not. It's actually just the layers of our, the ethers, our reality. We're gonna tune in. I know that. I won't be here on this earth when we get to that point of really like all unifying and understanding this concept as a global thing, you know?
Yeah, I think again, this kind of falls back to like, I think more and more people are realizing that. And like you just said, I mean, I can't have 65 labels for all of the different phenomena that I experience. You know what I mean? Because everybody's really capable of experiencing all the phenomena. There's no, you're not psychic, you're human. All of it is well within the sphere of what it's just human potential being used. So it's not, there's not really a need to label it. And I think it's interesting that you're saying that moving forward, more and more people are going to be joining in with that. And we were just talking about more and more people getting into it to the point where it's people who feel threatened by it are trying to take words and convert them into something negative as if to fight against it somehow.
Hmm.
But
Exactly that.
I don't think you can fight against human potential. It's just a natural human.
They could try, but it's not going to work because like our this is my belief, you want a little psychic prediction for you. This is what I was told by channeled source, that I know it's kind of controversial to say, but I'll just say it anyways because this is what I've been channeled anyways, and it's like kind of saying, in a sense, saying, "Are we going to make it?" You ever heard that? Are we going to make it? Are we going to stand? The thing is, it's already been destined that we are going to. We are, because we're already there.
Mhm.
I know, but the time span that's given, I think I mentioned to you about a time. Time is elastic. When people misuse the term too, like, oh, time doesn't exist. Okay, well, yeah, that's in the other ethers, of course, but in this scope, time is given for our lessons in a specific way. So actually, in a sense, time is necessary because you need time to go through the lessons, to process it and everything else. But the time thing is, we're going to ascend, but in our own time. So it's there, it's
Mhm.
happening, it's going to happen no matter what. The trajectory is there, as to what time frame each soul will go is up to them. And I do not believe that any soul is going to be left behind. I know it's very controversial to say, but I do not believe that because last thing I'm just going to mention, when I was mentioning, to source, source is kind of like the omega, the father, the mother, almighty, right? You're the children. Even the worst child, you're not going to take the worst child that you have and go, no, no, you're a bad child. You're just not going to make it. You're just going to go on the, a different bus or something. No, the, all of us are going to transition over in our own time, and nobody's left behind. No matter how you think you lived your life, you're just going to come back probably in another life, and another life, and another life. And I just want to just kind of throw it out there that we're all going to make it.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who's like, oh yeah, no, some of you just suck. Like that is not a message that I have ever received or gotten whatsoever. As far as I can tell, we are all tendrils and extension of the same consciousness, and that consciousness is source energy, or what people are pleased to call God. And so, why would God cut off his own finger? Why would God sever his own nerve endings? That's not a thing.
Yeah,
It's not a thing
exactly.
I can understand at all. You guys can always check out Joanna at Mind Healing Guide, and it's Confessions of a Quantum Channeler, right?
Yeah,
That's the
that
other
one
one.
other page would not, which, yeah, I didn't, I only did like one video. I'm gonna do more, but that's the one where it's more of the, otherworldly things.
Sure. We'll leave the links for those in the description if you guys want to check it out. Thanks for being here, and check back with us later for more conversations and more spirituality. Bye.
Bye.